side steps are one of those things like wheels on a vehicle that really either enhance or detracts from the overall aesthetic. It's something where you have to work really hard to get the proportions right, because you go too big and it looks like Ronald McDonald wearing his clown shoes. And you go too small and they're not functional. And so how do you walk that line between form and function, which is a line we constantly walk? So what we wanted to do was provide something that enhanced the overall look and feel of the Sprinter, was narrow enough for a trail, but large enough to support easily getting in and out of your vehicle. So first of all, up front, we have the extended step here because the majority of the time you're going to be getting in and out of the front of the vehicle. So we not only made this wider, but we also offer a tread plate behind it, which is kind of fun because you can paint it different colors, you can put stripes on it, so adds a little bit of your own personal touch to your van. And then back here is what is now kind of our design language for Owl, which is that Sherpa hole and slot pattern. And the idea here was not only to look like an Owl part, but to allow mounting of accessories. And on the driver's side, there's a whole part of the step that's not used where you can mount max tracks and roto packs and so on. And then we also made the first ever, as far as I'm aware, tread plate. And the idea is when you're stepping out onto a curved surface, let's say it's early in the morning and it's wet out, you're stepping out of the vehicle, so your foot tends to catch that rounded surface, and if it's at all wet or inclement weather, etc., you slip on it. So what we did is we have a plate that comes out and it turns up at the end, and it adds essentially the pounds per square inch on your foot, and it grabs you just like sandpaper would essentially. And that's up here, and that allows you to have a narrow back end and length of the tube where it could impact you on a trail, but a wider portion where you enter and exit the vehicle without some kind of heinous double bubble on the side step. So really happy with kind of the end result in being able to make something that enhances the look and feel of your van, but also enhances the functionality without kind of detracting or looking like an afterthought. A lot of people ask me why tubular. When it comes to making parts, we kind of have an ethos here at Owl. We either do it the right way or we don't make it at all. Now, a lot of companies out there are perfectly fine with just taking flat sheet, cutting on a laser, and bending it. And once you powder coat it black, it's really hard to tell that they're just press bending sheet material. But what you don't understand is the lack of strength in that end product. And so when you look at when you look at a product like Owl's Sidesteps, you notice that while we have some flat plates for you to stand on, the vast majority of the product is all tubular aluminum. In fact, it's different diameters of tubular aluminum. So you've got a main tube that's 2 inches, and then you've got supporting tubes that are 1.5 inches. And we do that part for aesthetics, but more for weight savings. We use the bigger diameter tubing where the strength is required, and then we use smaller diameter tubing where it's not. And so the end result is something that's massively stronger than what you'd get out of plate materials. I think it looks fantastic, and most importantly, it's the right way to do it. Why don't all companies build their products out of tube aluminum? Well, aluminum's hard to work with, but more importantly, tube is hard to work with. This is a bottom hoop that goes on the tire carrier and a ladder tire. It's aluminum, and the machine that bends this to this shape and copes this is about $2.5 million just to bend this. So now you look at a part like this, and all of a sudden, if you're just starting a company, it makes a lot more sense to go with this than to drop $2.5 million to be able to make the same thing out of tube. At Owl, we're big enough now that we can absorb the costs of those machines to do it the right way. Take this Sidestep. You've got a piece of 1.5 inches, or it could be 1.75 inches, I don't know off the top of my head, of tubing that is bent exactly to spec. And then you need to not only cope it, but you need to cope it on an angle. So it's an even more complex thing to do. And this really needs to be done with kind of automated bending machines, lasers, tube lasers, this kind of thing. If you were to do this by hand, you'd never have 2 sets of Sidesteps that were the same. And this is why startups don't use tubular aluminum. So this tube has to be cut perfectly. This one has to index at this angle. It indexes over here at a different angle. And so all of these things work in conjunction to create something that I think is aesthetically a beautiful Sidestep. But what you may not see in the beauty is how much stronger this is than what you're going to find out there that is just simply bent sheet metal.